Good morning. Are you a founder who's struggling to find time to train your team with your hard won expertise and experience? Well, you're not alone. And let's have a cup of coffee together, real quick, and talk about how leading founders have actually solved this problem and how you can use AI. That's the topic today. So, I'm going to give you 3 tips about how to use AI to actually make the most of your time and pass on that expertise that you have in your brain. Let me first talk about, real quick, what expertise I'm talking about. I'm not talking about textbook stuff. I'm not talking about the stuff they teach in college or university or wherever people get training. I'm not talking about expertise that's on the internet. I'm talking about your unique expertise, experience, knowledge, even wisdom. And chances are you're working in something where there is unique expertise needed. You're in a knowledge-driven industry. I'm a geek. I'm a trained PhD chemist. I've worked with sensor development, detectors. I've tested a landmine detector with a few friends on a team, in Bosnia in 1999. And I've worked with a lot of founders who struggle to, number one, find the time to train the team because they often are still doing a lot of the technical work themselves, but also to figure out how to transfer the expertise effectively and efficiently and completely enough to where they can trust to delegate more and more of what they currently are doing themselves. So if that's you, you're in the right place. So here are 3 tips that you can use today. Okay, the first one is, when you do training, please record it. Always record any and all trainings. That's so vital, because that way, at least the things that you have already shared are captured, and there's a lot of things you can do with them. For example, these days it's ridiculously easy now and really fast to get a transcript from these videos, and then you can use AI tools, we get to that in a minute, to summarize these and get the key takeaways from those transcripts. And then you can use those nuggets from those videos, from those summarized transcripts, and build training systems with that. But the cool thing is, and you may be familiar with the concept of a minimum viable product. What do I mean with a minimum viable product? Well, what I mean is, if, let's say, you're wanting to build a castle, which might be equivalent to the perfect training system. By the way, perfect doesn't really exist, but let's say really good. And but of course, building a castle takes time. So what you're going to do first is, you really want housing. So the first thing is, maybe you just take a tarp and a few sticks and you build a really simple tent. And then you build a more sophisticated tent, and then a shack, and then a house, and then you get to the castle. But all along, you actually have housing. So that first tarp with the sticks that keeps you dry, that is the minimum viable product. So similarly, when you record your trainings, you can show that training to someone else again. And so that is your first form of a training system. So that's like the tarp with the sticks. And then from there, you can do more things. So that's the first tip. Record everything. Second tip is, have a way to manage your knowledge. Okay, well, that sounds ominous. What do I mean by that? Well, you got to have a central place where your knowledge is stored, and it's got to be better, I think, than just folders on a computer. First of all, that's harder to share, but it's also difficult because, think about it, when you have a piece of information that could very easily go into either this folder or that folder, well, which folder are you going to stick it into? And so, but when you use a system where you can tag the information, now you can give it 2 or 3 or 5 tags, and you can find it, so much more granular way to mark that information. And so the tool I really like for that, even love for that, is Notion. And the cool thing is it's an app that you can use on your desktop, your laptop, any device, your cell phone even, and you can have it with you at all times. And so I recommend a method called PARA and a concept called the second brain by Tiago Forte. If you don't know about it, I invite you to learn about it. I got some resources about this I can post underneath, or just actually message me, and then I'll hook you up with, I'll point you the right direction. And so basically the idea though is that the knowledge that you acquire as you acquire it, you put into the system, into Notion. And you can think of this, I call it brilliance nuggets, so these little nuggets of information you put in there. So there's two kinds of nuggets, right? There's the nuggets that you collect from other people, and then there are the nuggets that you collect from your own brain. So what in fact we teach in our Brilliance Mining Academy, part of what you teach are these methods, but the other part that we teach is to become aware of all that brilliance, as I call it, that knowledge, wisdom, and so forth that you've acquired over all these years. When you encounter something where you go like, that's not something everybody knows. Well, write that down, capture that, and put it into Notion and tag it so that way you can find it again. And then again, you can use that to build training systems. And again, it can help. You can actually share those nuggets right then and there with your team through Notion. So again, that might be your minimum viable product. And then you can go and make courses and training portals and all of these things over time. Okay, so that's the second tip. Knowledge management through a tool like Notion. Love Notion. Changed my life. The third tip is to use either ChatGPT or perhaps better yet, Claude, for what I call brilliance mining. So let's talk real quick what I mean with brilliance mining. Brilliance mining is a framework I've developed. It's proven to give phenomenal return on investment. And basically all it means is to pull knowledge out of your brain, unique knowledge in particular, that the stuff that I call brilliance, So those are the things that you really want to teach to your team, and you're kind of struggling how, and you're not the only one, because the trouble with teaching that is not just the time, of course, that is a huge issue, but the other part is that you are aware of some of your brilliance and you are unaware of other parts of your brilliance. Because think about how we learn. First, we're blissfully ignorant, then we become aware that we don't know something, and then if we decide to learn that, then we learn it. And then for a while, we're aware that we learned it, and then what happens? Then we just use that knowledge automatically. And that is the hardest category of knowledge to pass on. And that is often the most valuable piece of knowledge to pass on. So how do you get at that? Well, brilliance mining gets at that. Now, there's lots of different methods for brilliance mining, and I'm going to give you one right now, which is my third tip, and use AI for it. So let's say you want to write down a process that's important, and maybe it involves even some judgment calls, right? Because let's face it, processes that are as simple as just the recipe for baking bread, that's maybe easier to write down, even though you still gotta remember, to write down all the steps so you're not accidentally forgetting to tell people to add yeast, right? But when there's judgment involved, then it gets even harder. All right, so here is what you can do. You can go to your favorite AI tool, and you can strike up a conversation with that AI tool and say, hey, I want to write down a process about blah, 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 right? Whatever that is. And what do you know about this process? or there's an art to come up with prompts. You can also, of course, buy prompt libraries, but really you need to learn a little bit about how to prompt the AI tool in a way, but don't expect it to come up with the best answer the first time, but interact with it a little bit. And the point of this is not that the AI tool will give you the entire process, because it will not, because it's not you. It doesn't have all the unique knowledge, but it will give you the public domain knowledge and will give you a starting point so you don't have to create the whole thing from scratch. Because that's often, that's a real time saver. And because often it is really, something that stops us, that we don't start with even writing it down because we're staring at an empty computer screen, and then we go like, oh, this is way too much work. I don't have time for this. And then the phone rings, or somebody comes in your office, or someone text messages you or whatever and disrupts you, right? So, but I think you're going to find that it's really fun, because you will get some steps and then you will say, wait, that's pretty cool, but it's missing something. And so what really that does, the interaction with the AI tool triggers you to think of things that and that are unique. And then, of course, the question is, do you put that knowledge back into the AI tool or not? Or do you just take the output of the AI tool and then work in Word or wherever you do this, PowerPoint or wherever you work on these things, and flesh it out with your own information. If your own information is confidential or proprietary, then I highly recommend you don't continue using AI tools, because it may take your knowledge, and you would want that in that case, right? But you can still create a starting point. So let's go over it again real quick. So the first tip is to record everything, and please label the files and indicate, what's in it. You might actually combine that with the second tip, which is to use Notion as a knowledge management system. So that means you can even keep track of these trainings there. You can have very quickly a database. It's ridiculously easy to do, and you can then tag it. You could put the date on it. You can give it a tag that indicates what's in the video. You can transcribe these videos either now or later and use AI to summarize them. And then the third tip is use either ChatGPT, I recommend 4.0 over 3.5, and or Claude, or try them both and see what you like better. And use that to get you started on documenting your knowledge by giving you the public domain knowledge, which you then can complement with your knowledge. That way, you're not looking at a blank slate. It goes faster. And by the way, it gives you an appreciation for just how much you know beyond what's in the public domain. So I hope that's helpful. And I have a Q&A today at noon Central, which is all about that topic, your own smarts and AI. So I'm going to put the link underneath, and I hope to see you there. Ciao.